Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Today we have the Cox Automotive Service Industry Studies sneak peek, Ted, and a lot of great information we're going to cover today.
Yep, and we've got the man here to share that with us. Skyler Chadwick, Director of Product Consulting at Cox Automotive, is with us. Skyler, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here today and to have this conversation and give a sneak peek into what's coming in February. As I would call this our industry study light for sure. So,
wow. Well, we had a chance to take a little peek in the green room. I know you're going to take us through it as only you can. So, Skyler, with that, the show is yours.
Oh, awesome. Well, let's continue on. Yeah, I think about this time of the year. I can only imagine what dealerships are thinking. What should we be focusing on for next year?
Yeah.
But the other thing is we also got to think is what is up against us as a dealership group. Now, I'm not going to say this is going up against every dealership in the industry, but there are a couple of things I want to highlight is that when we look at numbers, we like to look at from 2018, right? And you're going to see that throughout today. And we're going to go back to 2018 because that's so important. That's right. That was the year before COVID. And now has COVID made that change and so forth. So that's why you see the year 2018. But what I want to point out is we're really up on revenue. We're up 33% from 2018 on revenue. And the reason why is because parts and labor is up, right? The cost of parts and labor is huge. Now, that being said, we got a big monster on our tails as dealerships is because when we look at this from 2018 to 2025 this year, we have almost 300,000 independent general repair shops that have come into the market, which is direct competition to our dealerships, right? That's a 12% increase. And so that is where we're going to start to see those dealerships really start to see that competition coming back into their playbook for next year too as well. And the other thing too is you also have to think about is that we also see the average year vehicle age going up as well. So, right, we saw from 12.6 to 12.8 this year. That's a 0.2% increase, right? That's the highest we've seen in a very long time. And so, but that should be good things for dealerships and service repairs because guess what? That means major services, major repairs are going to be needed on those specific vehicles for sure. So, yeah.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. This is where I talk about, right? Dealerships were losing the piece of the pie. We actually see dealership share visits going down, and it's 12% over from 2018. You can see there that's a pretty big number. And where are we losing that? We're losing that to our general repair shops, our quick lane, and independent mobile and OEM mobile experience and things like that too as well. So from that perspective, right, that shrinking of that pie is shrinking, and that is a pretty substantial number when we see that from 12% there too as well. So dealership visits are really important, and we'll talk about some of those things here in the next couple of slides about things that we could focus on dealerships for next year and how we can actually try to earn that consumer's trust back too as well. So, and just into that piece of that pie, where is that pie being taken from us as we talk about that? And I this goes back to the whole consumer buying journey experience, right? One of the things that's really kind of concerning to me, Ted and Sarah, as we talk about here today is like, it seems like there's this growing buy here, service there mentality kind of growing. And that's where it kind of like, it kind of stresses me out just a little bit when I kind of share that quote with you guys is because it's so important that that 1 to 2 year old customer, how important it is for us to bring them back into the dealership, right? We can't allow a 12% increase on general repair, right? We can't just allow the customer to buy the car from us and let them go to our independent repair shops down the road. We just cannot do that. That's substantial. We see that huge drop right there. You can see that's one of the biggest drops in that 12% there. And that same year is that year 2 to 5 is still a critical part of that business too as well. And then that year 5, how important it is, right? We want to get these customers back into our dealership. So are we effectively marketing to these customers? Are we making it easier for them to schedule appointments and those types of things? So these are some substantial numbers here you see on this is that we are seeing that decline. We're seeing that piece of that pie being taken. And if you look at that piece of the pie, where does that break that segment into that, and then that ownership of years and the customers that we see here too as well. So pretty stunning numbers.
Yep, very much. Look at that.
Yeah, and here we go, right? It's pretty astonishing to hear that general repair has subsided, right?
Wow.
As a dealership for the most preferred service provider here.
Wow.
Right. And if you look at it, one is cost, right? When I see the number one cost around that is that
Huh.
it's the assumption of what our consumers think, right? That they think that going to a general repair shop, it's going to cost me less, right? Convenient location. Now I get a dealership, right? Let's be honest. We can't just pick up our dealership and move it. It's pretty hard to do that. But there are some things that we can specifically do, right? The other thing is, I would say that one of the reasons why people go to the dealership is because they know my vehicle. I think dealerships should know that, like, you know the customer better. And I think that's kind of going around data, right? As data helps us share what our consumer experience looks like too as well. And then prior experience as well.
And you mentioned earlier, it's really these independent repair shops. That's the competition for the dealer. It's not the next dealer with the same nameplate down the road. It's these independents that have been really eating the dealer's lunch, and you could see it here.
Yeah, it's becoming a focal point, right? And here, it's not for every dealership is seeing this, but I think you make a good point there, Ted. It's not the competition, right? It's not the two Chevy dealerships we have 30 miles apart from each other. It's really the independent dealerships that are in between those that are really making it harder for consumers. I can't tell you guys how many times I go out to my mailbox and I see an independent quick lane lube. I get coupons on all the time, but do I ever get coupons from my dealership? No, not very much, right?
No.
Now, I'm not saying mailers are great ideas, but they are effective, right? They do know how to market to the consumers and to really grab those consumers away from those dealerships for sure.
You're right, and there's so many choices on the way to the dealership. Here you see convenient location, 56%. On the way to that location at the dealer, I'm going to have to pass 10, 15, 20 of these competitors. And again, that's where a lot of the action is taking place.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and this is going back to the consumer. So now, right, the consumer said to us, I love going to the independent repair shops because they're cheaper. Well, guess what? We're here to tell you today, dealerships and consumers that may be listening to this video, dealerships are more cost effective for our actual consumers. You can see that $261 versus $275. That is a huge difference in cost wise. When you think about the number of our repair orders that come through your dealership, right? That means you need to be better marketing. I can see the wheels spinning in Sarah's mind right now as a marketer. Right? What are we doing? How do we better market to our consumers, right? And how do we compare these specific pricing? And this kind of goes back to as consumers, as deflectors, like nobody wants to go to a dealership's website and not be able to see, hey, how much is it going to cost me to do an oil change? Because we get our consumers back in for minor services like quick lane, right? Those types of things. So we got to do a better job of making sure we educate our consumers on pricing, what things are going to cost, and don't be afraid to go put it out there because we want our customers. We want them to schedule an appointment because guess what? If we don't schedule an appointment, we don't get the opportunity to get that customer back in the dealership. That is the wrong thing to do. Too many consumers are deflecting within that first 2 clicks of scheduling that appointment. So if we're not putting the pricing out there, we're not getting the right information. Or another thing I would say to dealerships, if you're providing way too much, right, you're making it almost difficult for your consumers to find what they're actually looking for. That can actually be a deterrent too as well.
Yep, makes sense. Sure.
This is one of my favorite things to talk about. What are the top frustrations that consumers are telling us, right? Hey, it took longer than expected. That's just plain communication. We've got to do a better job of communicating with our consumers. When they come into the dealership, as an advisor, we should be telling them, hey, I would anticipate an hour and a half. Would you like me to get you a Lyft or an Uber, a ride share, whatever that may be, to get to the mall or bring them back to the dealerships? A lot of dealerships have those capabilities, right? We still have shuttles at dealerships. We need to make sure that we're convenient to the consumer and making sure that their livelihoods are intact there too as well. So the other thing is, finding out how much it's going to charge, right? I think that when we think about technology, I think a lot of times we instill technology into our dealerships, but the most importantly part are people using that technology correctly? Are they effectively communicating through that technology to make sure that we help the customer understand, hey, before I sign off on this job, this is what it's going to be. And I think that goes back to number 2 and number 4, which is kind of interesting, is that's just bad communication. That just comes down there too as well. And number 3, I really want to talk about this because tired of pushing additional service recommendations. Sometimes that communication comes planned. It's great that we take pictures. I saw it at a dealership the other day. They sent 6 recommendations to a customer, and all they did is they attached 6 photos to it. Didn't say anything about what that was, but as a consumer, I can see, like, what does that mean to me? Just so you know, like if we go to the doctor's office, I want to hear from the doctor. I don't want to hear from the nurse. I want to hear from my doctor.
Yes.
And your technicians are your doctors. So let's put pictures and videos together, because we know when we create that better transparency across Cox Automotive, I can tell you guys, 55% of dealerships that use pictures and videos simultaneously together, they have a better chance of, they're 55% more likely to sell those services. But number 3, let's be careful about how much we give to the consumer at time. What does their car truly need at this moment to get down the road? And then let's focus on marketing to that customer to get them back in 3 months or 2.5 months, whatever that may be, that time measurement for your dealership too as well. So good stuff.
Sarah, I think what Skyler mentioned, particularly here, number 1, service took longer than expected. If the customer, like a lot of dealerships, Skyler, you mentioned, are now calling the customer a Lyft or an Uber to take them back to work or to home. If the customer's not in the waiting room and, again, in their living room, okay, as opposed to that, the service may not appear longer than expected. Also, a lot of the follow-ups happen now at the customer's home. And as we all know, and we see, they're more inclined to go ahead with that work and spend additional dollars on that repair order on needed services, of course.
Yeah, for sure. All right. This is awesome, because when we exceed that consumer experience, right, just as expected or worse than expected or better than expected, I want to see that 51% go to that 46% mark, right? I want to see that dealerships and the consumers have a better experience when we take it to the dealership, right? Fix it on time. All these things that we're talking about, these are all things that are important. So these are exactly the quotes that we're hearing from customers, right? Poor communication. Busy your schedule, got my service completed faster than expected. So everything's about time and communication when we look here too as well. And that goes back to time management too and shop loading, right? Making sure that we fit the consumer's needs. I think one of the best things I've seen dealerships who are being successful at it is that we're marketing to our customers to come in at the afternoons. Hey, receive a 10% discount if you come in between the hours of 2 and 5, right? Instead of getting that morning rush, let's be smarter in how we actually go better to our consumers. Let's set it up for success.
Makes sense.
All right, providing the right tools. As you can see here, scheduling service and repair and approval processes is the top 2 biggest things what is important to consumers, right? I can't stress it enough. I think we're making it too difficult for our consumers to schedule appointments. And then the other thing is, are we actually getting the approvals to the right person? Are we making the impact, like I talked about, videos and pictures and those types of things? Don't just send me 6 items with pictures on with no explanation, right? Don't expect me as a consumer to be okay with that. And that's the thing that worries me, is that we instill these technology tools and we're just not making sure that we have great processes to follow back up on them, for sure.
Yeah. Makes a whole lot of sense, Skyler. Like that.
All right. This is a crucial thing for me. Service to sales. If there was a golden ticket to what should be focused on for next year, I think it's this service to sales. how do we keep that consumer in our ecosystem?
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at that number, 74% of the consumers that were in part of this study returning to the dealership in the past 12 months, they were 88% of that was impacted by they would likely to purchase their next vehicle back to the dealership. 88% of the consumers. So service experience is having an impact on our front end of business. If we sell that customer, we keep them in our ecosystem, and it's all depending upon that actual 74%, right? So 44% said, you know what? I did not return to the dealership for service in the past 12 months because of likely some of these things and contributing factors to that. So my golden ticket is, how do we bring sales as a service more closely? And I think Tully Williams, who's not on this call today, who usually is, but what did he talk about, right? We are in the business of repeat and referral business. And I think that is such an important factor. And when we talk about that segment there, to sales as service, it's a huge factor. And if salespeople are listening to this, 88%, right? Check in on your customer when they come in for service, right? Make sure we're communicating not just from the back end, but also the front end too as well, and making sure that that consumer comes back to the dealership and services our vehicle. So
Very well said, Skyler. Fantastic information. And you're right, that service department is a gold mine in many ways, right? So affects the entire dealership. So great job.
yeah.
And exciting to see this light version. So that indicates, Sarah, there's going to be something even more extensive coming shortly.
That's right. And Skyler, this is always a highlight when you release this information, because again, you're looking at the consumer experience, you're looking at these trends, and there's a lot of data that you process to get this report for dealerships.
Yeah, it goes a lot into it. I'm thankful for those consumers that come and actually come in and actually are part of these surveys and those types of things, because we learn a lot. And it goes back to those, making sure that our consumers are in front of us and that it's part of that experience, right? Let's make it so that the advisor has fun at his job, right? And I think Tully talks about that too, is time management. I think it's going to come down to that too as well. And this is a service industry light, folks. There's more to come. I'm excited to share those in 2026. And hopefully this is an insight to dealerships. If you fall in one of these categories and you're really struggling, let's see what we can do for 2026, and let's make some of our goals around how do we fix our communication with our consumers? How do we make it a better customer experience so our people are using our tools effectively that we have instilled today in our dealership? And those are the things that are most important as we go into 2026. So,
Skyler, thank you. Dealers are now making their plans for 2026. Here we are coming towards the end of that fourth quarter now. Skyler, want to thank you for all you do for the industry. And Sarah and I want to wish you and your family and the Cox Automotive family a very happy Thanksgiving at the end of next week.
thank you so much, Ted.
All right, everybody. For more information, you can visit Cox Automotive on the web. Skyler Chadwick is the Director of Product Consulting, oversees a lot there that's happening and a lot coming in 2026. Be sure to look up Skyler, very active on social media as well. Skyler Chadwick from Cox Automotive with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks, everybody.